Welcome to the Turtleshell Therapy Institute, a podcast made to help you learn how to feel more comfortable inside and outside of your shell. Hello and welcome to the Turtleshell Therapy Institute. I'm your host, James Nee Hundley, and joining us today, I am so thrilled to have Liliana Baylon. So Liliana is the founder of Healing Relationships Counseling Services, which offers synergetic play therapy, EMDR, and emotionally focused therapy to Latino families, couples, and individuals. She primarily works with immigrants, refugees, and first-gen adults and children. Liliana is also the founder of Liliana's Consulting Services, where she offers consultation, supervision, public speaking, and training. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, American Association of Marriage and Family Therapist Approved Supervisor, Registered Play Therapist Supervisor, Synergetic Play Therapist Supervisor, EMDRIA Approved EMDR Consultant, Public Speaker, and Trainer. Liliana is here with us today to talk about play therapy and family therapy, when caregivers should consider play and/or family therapy, what to look for in a therapist, and what to expect in a session. Thank you so much for being here, Liliana. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's such an impressive background, too. I guess to start, if you just wouldn't mind giving a little bit of background around, the different agencies, your services, kind of what led you to these therapies.
Yeah. So, right, when everyone hears the background that I have, it's like, what? But this is the way that I like to simplify it. Because I work with a specific population, I had to become client-centered, which meant that I had to go and get trained in different models to serve the population that I was helping or serving, because not everyone will benefit from a specific model. And when I said, I work with immigrants and refugees, most of them, when they come to sessions, looking for someone who speaks Spanish, or can do, I can do Spanglish in the sessions. So because of that, there are very few of us in the state of Colorado. So because of that, I had to go seek other models in order to be the best therapist that they needed.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I think that's something, too, that's really important. There's so many different models out there. So that means that there isn't really a one-size-fits-all.
No, and I love that we're having, as therapists, I love that we're having this actually conversation because, years ago, centuries ago, the whole idea was to be a purist. And then we went to an eclectic phase. And then we started years ago thinking that we have, in order to be a master of one therapy model, that we have to just study one. So there was this push to become a purist. But what we're finding out is that not all our clients, because of their backgrounds, stressors, traumas, so on and so forth, they actually not just benefit from one model. So this is not to say that if you want to become a purist, that's a bad thing, but that just serve a specific population, not everyone. And here in the United States, we are a melting pot.
Yeah.
We have so many people coming for the American dream, for necessity, or because of trauma when I'm talking about refugees. So therefore, we need a little bit of everything in order to help them.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And just especially with the cultural piece and some adaptations that might need to be made depending on the different cultural backgrounds, lived experiences. I mean, especially being an immigrant, refugee in particular. I've done some work with first gen, and I can just see it's such a unique lived experience when I've worked with adults who were raised by people who immigrated or were refugees here.
Yeah. So yes, I get excited when someone has worked with this population because I've been advocating for, there's a specific issues that we're working with when we're working with immigrants, refugees, and first generation, especially the first generation where they have their parents telling them, these are our struggles. This is our background. This is the way that we do things. And then we have first generation growing up here in the United States, going to school all their lives here in the United States, and then they're living in two different worlds. So they don't have first experience with the trauma that their parents went through, adjusting and altering to this country, but they have heard about it. And then they have this loyalty towards them. They want to do the best to help them, yet they're living in a world that is telling them you have to be this way. You cannot do this. You're not an immigrant per se, or so on and so forth. So it's very conflicted what they're dealing with, right? A lot of mixed messages, a lot of loyalties, a lot of who am I, identity parts showed up with this specific population.
And it's so interesting too to see how, because I've worked with, I mean, it's obviously more complex than two, but I've seen where children were raised by parents who are immigrants or refugees and fully like, we are American, we are disowning our previous culture. You get to know nothing about it, or the opposite, you know, kind of what you were saying. There's this conflict where we have our culture, family values, and then they're conflicting with American ideas. And
so it all depends, right, on what is it that the parents were exposed to. So if you think about the history of the United States, we have always fought when we're immigrants, and I will put myself there because I am one. When we are immigrants, refugees, or like my kids, they are first generation. They have a different label. So they don't fully have like you belong. So through the history, it was a lot of fighting of we have to acculturate in order to be accepted. So then they let go of that, parents let go of that identity because of fear, lack of opportunities. So then they pass that anxiety, that fear to their children.
Yeah.
Then their children grow up like, no, I'm not. I don't have that identity. I don't identify with. So it's conflicted. And what we're seeing, not that we're seeing research, but what we're seeing in our sessions is that sooner or later, that identity comes into play into the sessions because they're trying to figure out who am I in this world.
And then, from an attachment perspective, that can really make the attachment insecure.
That's right.
That whole conflict.
Yeah.
So in a family therapy session or a play session, how do you work with that when you have, parents who have immigrated here or refugees and, and help their child with that conflict or even help the parents with that?
Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between doing family therapy and then family play therapy. So there's even a misconception in our field. So family therapy is your typical, you work with systems, you still have a hierarchy, but usually it's talk therapy. So we just sit down and we talk about it, we process. When you do family play therapy, the whole family is your client, yet you tend to use a mix of talk therapy and then expressive arts. And what I mean by that is that you can use different play therapy models, because when we think about play therapy, we think about play therapy in general, but we don't think about play therapy as that is the umbrella. And then we have different models to go in regards to play therapy. And then we tend to use expressive arts because we can choose the model. For example, like TheraPlay, everybody who does play therapy and works with families is very familiar with TheraPlay. So we will use TheraPlay, and then we can use drawings. We can use sand work. We can use, anything that comes, board games, in order to create and process with the family using a tool. Right? But it's from the child perspective as well, not just talk therapy, which is usually the adults.
That makes sense. As you were talking, I don't really do a lot of play therapy now, but I remember one thing I ran into a lot were parents having a hard time being engaged in the play, not understanding the purpose, sometimes feeling like, I even had one parent say that it gets boring for them. But a lot of it, I think, is just not understanding the purpose of play and how that's helpful for their children.
So even when you ask me the question, right, which is culturally, and I know that when we talk about culture, we tend to focus on ethnicity and race. We tend to dismiss groups. But when we're talking about culture, I like to ask the family, what is the family culture when it comes to play? Because that is one of the responses that I get, which is, we play. But then when you ask more questions or, you are more curious about, you realize that they actually don't play.
Yeah.
So depending on the family culture and their upbringing, a lot of the times what we're seeing is the adults stop playing at a certain age. And when they think of play, they think of something that they have to go and spend a whole day or spend money. But they forget about imaginary play. They forget about board games. They think that it's going to be something they have to be focused for a long periods of time. When in reality, the purpose of a board game is to engage, attune, be playful. But they forget this because of the demands that they have, right? The stressors that they have. So they don't allow themselves to be playful anymore, not this way. So part of the family play therapy is reintroducing the idea of play in small doses so that they can remember the felt sense. And when they see these new memories, which is corrective experiences that they have in the session, they're able to imitate this outside the session.
That's fascinating and really interesting, because I've seen that too, the idea that parents have forgotten how to play. Because I'll see that if they just don't really know what to do. I've noticed like a discomfort that comes up with parents, or they'll take over the play. They'll be suggesting ideas, but really they're just kind of taking over the play. So it'll be more interesting for them. And
well, that's the anxiety, right? As the therapist, of like, oh, anxiety just showed up. I do not know what to do. And therefore, as the parent, as the adult, I have to tell you so that you don't feel anxious, when in reality is their own anxiety, discomfort of not knowing.
And it's such a good reminder, like you said, play is about being playful, attuning, connecting. That's really the only thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
And not everything too. What I'm also thinking of, not everything has to be a teachable moment, because I also will see a lot of caregivers or adults try to make it like a learning experience when it's just, we're just being with each other. That's really the purpose.
When I think of play, I'm like, what is it that I learn? And then what comes to my mind right away is like laughter, because of what I did during play. I don't think about what I learned, right? So even when we do family play therapy, of course we have directed play. And then we have, right, unstructured play, which means is that I may present an idea to do, and then let's see what happens. And that's more of an assessment to see who takes over, who needs help, can you ask for help, like what's going to happen in the session. When it's more directive, it's because we have an agenda, and I am focusing on recreating or helping the family with attuning, nurturing, attending, like there's something more, or how to help with regulation. Like there's more of an agenda of the therapist to come in with the specific tools, the specific interventions in order to help the family.
So if you have a parent, so this is kind of like for listeners too, just to think about too. So if you have a parent saying like, I don't really know how to connect with my child, or I don't really know how to be comfortable with just playing with them and being with them, what's some advice you would give that parent?
I tend to validate and normalize. As adults, of course, when was the last time that you just played to play?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to do that? Or that little voice comes out into play, like, no, you should do the laundry. You should go grocery shopping. Like it's all these little scripts that we have, right? So I tend to normalize and validate for parents, especially, like, of course, that makes total sense. Between playing and doing this, of course you're going to do this, because if not, who else is going to do it? Yet, because you are here and you want to find out a different way on how to connect with your child that is not shore-driven, task-driven, let's explore this a little bit more, right? So I tend to have sessions just with parents to validate, to normalize, to explore, and to introduce the play. I will never throw a parent like, let's play, without having that first, because it will not be fair to them. I will set them to fail, and it will not be fair to the child, because I don't want the child to have that experience of like, here we go again. I don't want to do this because, it's uncomfortable, or my parents are going to blame me, or this is going to be awkward. So having sessions with parents to normalize, to validate, to introduce, to organize it in a way that they can have that sense of like, oh, that's right, I used to enjoy this.
I love that. yeah, just kind of inviting that self-compassion, that curiosity,
Yeah.
just to open them up to being able to remember.
Yeah.
I am curious because I don't actually know a lot about synergetic play therapy. Would you mind kind of describing what that therapy is?
Mhm. So synergetic play therapy, we're actually very lucky here in Colorado. The founder of, which is Lisa Dion, she is here. So
Oh, nice.
here in Colorado, we tend to be very spoiled because we tend to do a lot of trainings with her. But synergetic play therapy is just another model of play therapy that utilizes play, regulation, understanding of neurobiology, understanding of functions of the brain. So we tend to do a lot of modeling when it comes to regulation, and then we tend to coach parents in regards to how to be the co-regulator for the
Okay.
child, understand the child's responses, the symptoms, exactly from a symptom perspective versus thinking that the child is just spoiled or resistant or there's something wrong with them. So Lisa Dion tends to borrow a lot from neurobiology. She even says, like, I even use math. So she's very playful because she tends to borrow like from other authors, from other models, and then like put it in a package so that it will be helpful for therapists to reframe constantly what is experienced for the child, what is experienced for the parent from an attachment lens, right? Giving that responsibility to the parent, but normalizing, validating, modeling them and providing psychoeducation for them, and then for the child, showing them alternatives. So you can scream, or what about, and then we can offer alternatives. So she has a lot of handouts for anyone who's listening. If you go to the Synergetic Play Therapy, they even have a Facebook account. You can go get like handouts in regards to regulation, and she gives alternatives to regulation, suggestions for regulations. She has handouts for the nervous system. And then she explained what would that look like in a child or an adult. So there's a lot of handouts that she has created for parents, for therapists, for educators. They even have a specific, you can become a certified synergetic play therapist, but now they even have a branch specifically for schools and how teachers, can do this in classrooms, which is amazing what they're doing. Then so much research is being done by the synergetic play therapy in order to, what are we doing, what is working, and how can we improve it, and how is serving different populations.
That is awesome. I mean, yeah, I've seen it around a lot, but I've never really had a chance to sit down, and it makes so much sense. And I can see where that would pair well with things like EMDR and emotionally focused therapy.
Yeah. So even Lisa Dion has presented workshops on how to do, she will tell you, if she was here, that SPT plays well with others. And that's a form of saying that you can use SPT with EMDR. I use SPT with EFT, with EMDR. I tend to use it, with families, like, because it's such a beautiful way of integrating regulation, understanding of the nervous system, understanding of what part of the brain I'm engaging. And anytime that I talk about the brain, I think about Dan Siegel and Lisa, because she has a beautiful way of simplifying it even more. And then understanding how to pay attention to those symptoms, and as therapists, how to track what is happening, and then what part of the brain I'm going to be engaging, depending on what's showing up in the session.
That sounds, because when I would do play therapy, that was the thing where I would feel lost a lot. Okay, what am I engaging? Like, sounds awesome for therapists.
Yes.
And a big thing too that I think is important to highlight that comes up, that I think a lot of people, a big misconception on play therapy is the importance of the caregivers being involved.
Yes.
I think a lot of people think it's, drop the kid off, the therapist plays with them, does some therapy. But the caregivers have to be involved.
it's a system, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about systems, if one person is trying to do something different, historically, the system is going to do anything and everything that they can in order to maintain the system because that's what is familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in play therapy, one of the fears that we have is how do we do this with multiple nervous systems in the room, right? Like doing
Yeah.
play therapy is just the therapist and the child, so it's one nervous system that you have to manage. But doing family play therapy, that's a lot of people. A lot of
Yeah.
people that will be talking, will be moving. You even mentioned earlier, right? Like, what if the parent is like, no, we have to do it this way, and then the child starts crying or being frustrated because they want to do it a different way. Like, there's so many things that show up in a session. So, of course. So then is how are we gonna do this in a way that is responsible, in a way that I don't get flooded as a therapist, and in a way that I can provide a corrected experience for the family. And that may be even having sessions with the parents, explaining the benefits of play therapy, in this case, family play therapy. What would that look like? What will we require of them? And then what is it that we need to do, right? So the way that I work, I tend to tell families, we're going to do family sessions. Sometimes I'm going to be working with dyads. I may work with mom and child, or I may work with the siblings. But either way, I will always do sessions so that I can do check-in just with you as a parent, just so that I know what is working, what are you noticing, how can I empower you, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
But also so that I can get information from you, right? And then help you this way, because you only get to see me like for a small, tiny moment. If we're lucky and families are able to come weekly, which most families, due to finances, due to so many stressors, they can. So if they can, what can I do to help you so that you can take what we're learning and practicing here, you can take it outside the session?
Yeah, and thank you for that description. I think that's really helpful because I think a lot of caregivers feel really intimidated working with a therapist, but really it's very collaborative because we have the same goal at the end of the day to help the kid.
Yes, right. Like our goal should be very clear. And then we should always be doing, as therapists, we should be checking in with the family, with the parents to see, are
Yes.
we in track? What are you noticing at home? What information do I need? What is it that I need to tweak in the sessions, right? So that you can feel empowered, so that you know if you're dysregulated as parents, so that you can take care of yourself, so that you can come in and be the external regulator for your child. Because children take a while, right, to mature,
Mm-hmm.
to know how to share. And so what is it that we can do? Because from an attachment perspective, the parent is responsible to attend to the attachment needs of the child.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if that is the case, how we're going to empower the parents, that dyad, in order for them to feel comfortable and not scared of what we're doing.
So important. And I think also a good thing too for caregivers too, when they're looking for a therapist, to feel that out. Do I feel safe with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel like I can be vulnerable and not be judged?
Yeah. Yeah. So you asked me, like, right, so then what is it that parents should be looking for? And I said, anything requires research. And what I mean by that is you may go to Google and look for a family play therapist, and then someone catches your eye. So then go to their website, call them, ask them, can I take a couple of minutes from you just to ask you a couple of questions? Because we want to know that the therapist has trainings in regards to how to work with systems, has trainings from an attachment perspective, play therapy perspective, that understand child development, that understand parenting fears, faces, and how we're going to put all of this together, right? So asking questions. When you go buy a car, you ask questions about the car. When you're going to buy a house, when you're going to rent, you ask questions as a consumer. So hiring a therapist should be no different.
I agree with that. Exactly. And it's important. I think it's okay to look because, therapists, we have different approaches, different personalities.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're looking for a serious therapist, that will not be me. I am very playful with what I do. So I can do a consultation. I'll be like, oh, I think I have someone in mind that might be better fit for you. Which I have those clients that I'm like, after meeting with them, I was like, I think you need something different for what you're describing. It's not that it's not me. I want you to think that I don't want to work with you, but why don't you try calling this person to see what is the feeling that you get? And if you still want to come back with me, we can. But like, I think this person is going to help you much better than I can.
And that's a really important reminder, and just permission to give not just caregivers, but also therapists. It's okay if it feels like maybe somebody else might be a better fit for what the family's needing, what they're expecting.
Yeah. So make sure that as therapists, like, you have your own list of people that, you can refer to. If you're going to do that, call that therapist, go for coffee, ask questions, establish this relationship. Because that's exactly what it is, right? If I'm going to send you someone, are you going to be it for them? What is it that you like? What is your background? What is your training? So that is very helpful also as therapists. We have to do our homework too.
Absolutely. Well, I am curious because we've talked about playfulness with children, with adults. What does playfulness look like for teenagers? Because I imagine they also need playfulness as well.
Of course.
Yes.
They do. We have this image of teenagers and hormones, and I think this is what I love about Dan Siegel, right? It's like, stop it. Like, stop saying that. It's not just that. But think about being a teen. And you're going through this phase of discovery, exploration, trying to fit in, being like, the pressure of knowing what you're going to do, what you're going to study. Like, it's so much, so much noise around you. They actually like to play. It's just that the play may be different in regards to, they want to come in. They want to ask you to play. So as parents, am I paying attention to that? Am I paying attention to what is the invitation to play or to engage? Most parents tend to go through the fear of, when you were a child, I knew what you like. I knew when you were having a bad day. I knew who you were hanging because I arranged the play dates. I was in control, per se, of everything. And now that you're a teen, I do not know. If they're driving, we rarely get to see them. And then play, is it video games in your phone or in your room? Like, I don't get to engage. So it just looks different. Yet we have all done it, right? If I ask you, James, like, when you were a teen, how did you play? How did you engage with your family? It will be different, but the expectation or the fantasy that we have as parents is that playfulness will look the same all the time. It doesn't matter our age.
I love that question too, because as soon as you said it, like, remember when I was a teenager? Yeah, I guess it was a lot of banter. I just remember making jokes or observations, trying to make my parents laugh, and I loved it when they would banter with me. It felt so connecting. It was fun.
Yeah. Right. So play looks different, and it's more of me as a parent going into my child's world and then playing with them. Right. So I'm a mother of two right now. My children are young adults, but when they were teens, my youngest one was all about soccer. Not that has changed. So then I had to learn names of players, teams. I have to learn everything about soccer, and then going with him to games that he wanted to go, so that I can engage with him. Right. And then I was modeling how to do that. So then what he learned is to ask about my world as well.
Show interest to your teenager. They'll start to show interest in you too.
Yeah. So then our play is just that. We play board games. They love playing video games. So I had to learn to be comfortable playing video games and letting go of the idea that was a waste of time.
When you said that too, Mario Kart, I still love Mario Kart to this day because my mom and I would play it all the time.
That's why we still play.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Yeah. Mario Tennis was another one. And those were really fun. Or I even just liked it sometimes when they would watch me play a solo game and ask me questions.
I'm the one who's going to ask you questions. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a movie coming out and it's about video games. Mario is there.
Yeah.
we were eating and my son is like, can we go see it? And both of my kids, which, again, they're young adults, like, can we? And I was like, totally. Let's check out the dates and let's make it a date. So it's just that, right? Because we have foster at home, because I went into their worlds, right? My older son, he is a young adult and he teaches dance. So everything is about dancing, and in his downtime is a specific shows that he sees. So I get the privilege to sit with him and ask him questions about whatever he's watching. And then because I still want to learn about his world.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't feel that he is excluded just because he's on his 20s, or that it doesn't matter. I'm always listening, and I always want to join in. And it may be coffee dates now. He loves when we go to coffee dates. So it may be like getting in the car and go get a coffee. It may be listening to a song. It may be me watching what he's going to be teaching that week. So that dynamic has not changed. I still go to their world. I still ask questions. I still watch. I still pay attention. And then, they come to my world and they ask me questions. So is this modeling, attunement, this constant dance that we tend to do back and forth?
And as you're talking too, I'm wondering, what's some advice you could give some caregivers, no matter the age of their child? Because, we were talking about the busy lives and all the responsibilities that we have as adults. How can they keep that curiosity or make space for that interest in their child's world?
Yeah. I think for me, and let's go back to Lisa Diane, I am very privileged to have conversations with her, but there was one class that she had in regards to how to work with parents. And she said, let's be real. Sometimes everyone talks about different parenting styles, but sometimes we have options. Forget about the parenting styles. We have to go from point A to point B. And that morning may be we have to get up, depending on the end of the age of the child, and we have to get them ready, get them in the car, take them to school. So that is very agenda driven. So I may snap if I'm running late. I may snap. I may not be the perfect, ideal fantasy parent that society thinks I should be. Mm-hmm. There's the other one where I'm not running late. I still have to go from point A to point B, but that day my window of tolerance is really wide. And I still have time. I may even stop and get coffee because, we have extra minutes. So then I may be more attuned and more curious. I still have to go from point A to point B, but there's room for playfulness and curiosity. And there is C, which is I have the time. I still have all those stressors, but I have the time to stop everything and just engage with you in this moment, right? Yeah. So I share this because that gave me permission to not be perfect and to go with the flow. And it's weird, right, that as adults, we still need permission. That's why we read so many books. That's why we listen to podcasts. That's why we do everything that we do. But when she said that, I was like, oh, I get to be me and attend to the needs of myself or my children, depending on the window of tolerance and the stressors that we're managing that day. Got it. And in all of that, if I lose it, I get to go and ask permission to repair and model what will that look like.
Yeah, that's so important because I think so many parents and caregivers, well, just adults in general, because I see this even with everybody, like there's this fear that if we give ourselves permission to not be perfect, that then we'll just not do our best or not do well or make excuses for ourselves, when really it's giving ourselves permission to repair and then showing our kids what that looks like.
So, when you said what advice, what suggestions, I will say, be you. Be humanize yourself as much as you can. That's something that I share with my clients all the time. How do you humanize yourself today? Right? Can you show all these parts, not just the ones that you think that your child needs to see, which tend to be fantasy related, like I'll show myself, my perfect self. I'll have all the answers. Versus humanizing yourself. When my children ask me questions and I don't know, I said, I don't know. Let me think about this. Let me go do some research about this, right? So how can we humanize ourselves? I lost it today. I am so sorry. What can I do to make it up to you in this moment? How can I, make it better in this moment? I cannot do anything about the past, but in this moment, how can I make it better?
And that sort of modeling is so, so important for kids because I feel like we have so many adults that feel like they have to know and be perfect because we didn't get to see adults model that humanity.
Yeah. So I will share that, if listeners, I was like, yeah, but you're a therapist. Yeah, but I'm still human.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't came from an attachment perspective. I didn't came with that template. So this is something that I had to learn. And you can read a lot of stuff. You can go to a lot of trainings. But when you are overwhelmed, when you have all these stressors of all the things that you have to do, everything here goes out, right? Your frontal cortex, like there's no access to that information. So it just goes away. So then, what can I do to show you that, one, you don't have to know it all. You don't have to be perfect. I love all parts of you. All parts of you are welcome in this family. And what are we going to do? And what are we learning from here? What is the lesson? For my children, the question was like, what do you learn today? Nothing. I'm pretty sure that something got integrated.
Right.
And then we will start laughing, right? Or anytime that they fail, which is something also that we change in our family. Like we learn lessons when we fail. No one learns something from oh my God, I did this all right. No one does. We brag when we just we don't learn. So then it's great. What do we learn from this? And it's we, it's not you, right? What do we learn from this?
No, exactly. Well, just really good things for people to think on and remember. One question I have too. So when should caregivers consider family therapy or play therapy? What are some signs they should look for?
I think anytime that anyone is going through adjustments, if there has been trauma, if any dysregulation is showing up, and by dysregulation, it can be most clients that come to us is because they have a lot of anxiety, they isolate, they tend to show aggression. So anytime that we have any dysregulation, I will say, consult with a therapist. That is not different than when a child has a cold, fever, anything medical related, and you call your doctor to what is it that we do? So yeah, any adjustment, any struggles, any dysregulation, I love using the word dysregulation. Any dysregulation that shows up in the family, call a therapist. We're here to help.
Well, Liliana, if somebody wants to talk to you about getting therapy, or if there's any therapists or anybody who wants supervision or trainings from you, where can they find you? Where can they reach you?
So for clients, they can always reach out to my website, which is just my name, Liliana Baylon, just together, lilianabaylon.com. And that is my website where you can find all information in regards to models, services that I provide. If you are a therapist and is interested in credentials, supervision, that kind of stuff, then go to Liliana Consulting Services. I separated the two so that not my website, lilianabaylon.com, was getting so saturated with information that I needed to separate it already. So for supervision, consultation, trainings, Liliana Consulting Services. For clients, it's Healing Relationships. lilianabaylon.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, this was so much rich information. That was just even got me thinking. I just get so excited talking about this stuff.
Me too. No, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for the invitation to be here with you.
Of course. I'd love to have you back on sometime.
Anytime.
So much helpful information and so many good things to think and reflect on. So again, that was Liliana Baylon. If you're somebody looking for therapy and interested in working with Liliana, she can be reached at her website, Liliana Baylon, all one word, .com. That's LILANABAYLON.com. And if you're a therapist looking for consultation, supervision, or training, you can find her at lilianaconsultingservices.com. Well, I hope you learned a lot today and that today was helpful. I know I definitely learned a lot today and just really enjoyed talking with Liliana. I hope to see you back at the Institute soon. Have a great day and take care.